Reed Carter had lived alone on Red Mesa 4 for almost half a year, and he had gotten used to the silence. The planet looked like an alien version of the Old West. Red canyons, long deserts, and sudden winter storms that could kill a man in minutes. He worked as an outpost guard for a small human settlement. It was quiet work, but that was why he chose it. People disappointed him too often. The frontier hardly did. But that night, the calm he trusted suddenly changed. The wind outside howled like something alive. Snow slammed against the outpost walls with such force that the entire cabin shook. It was not normal snowfall. This was the kind of storm Red Mesa 4's explorers feared, because it came fast and without mercy. Reed wrapped himself in a thick jacket and checked the heater. It wasn't young anymore, just like him. It had survived too many winters. He banged it once with a gloved hand and muttered, "Don't give up on me now." The heater made a weak groan, like it was trying to answer him, and then the light flickered. Reed sighed. This was bad. If it died tonight, he would freeze before sunrise. He turned toward the window to see how bad the storm was outside. White wind swallowed the world. Even close objects were invisible. Nothing should be moving out there. Nothing should survive out there. That was why he froze when he saw a sudden shadow fall across the window. Quick, small, but definitely a shape. Reed grabbed his rifle instantly. Danger on this planet did not knock politely. He pressed his face to the fogged glass, steadying his breath. Something was out there. A figure. Not tall. Not human. He could barely see her shape through the storm, but she stumbled, collapsed, and didn't move again. Reed cursed under his breath. Whatever she was, she would die in seconds if left there, and whether human, alien, enemy, or friend, he couldn't just watch someone freeze to death. "Damn it," he muttered, throwing on his heavy coat. "This better not be a stupid decision." He pushed open the door. The cold hit him like a wall. The wind sliced his face as if it wanted him gone. He pushed through it anyway and trudged toward the fallen shape. Snow buried her almost instantly. He brushed it aside and finally saw her clearly. She was an alien woman, skin warm bronze, long dark hair decorated with thin glowing beads, and markings on her cheeks that looked like painted lines. Her clothing was not human-made. It looked handcrafted, traditional, but also reinforced with strange fibers humans didn't use. Reed recognized the style, Apache star nomads, a tribe that lived close to nature, blending old ways with alien biotech. Some were friendly to humans, some were not. No one truly understood them. She was breathing, but faintly. Her eyelids fluttered like she was fighting to stay conscious. "You picked a bad night to wander the frontier," Reed said, lifting her into his arms. She was surprisingly warm to the touch, so warm that steam rose from his gloves. He didn't stop to question it. The storm was too strong. He carried her back inside, slammed the door shut, and kicked snow off his boots. He set her near the heater. Her chest rose and fell, but her breaths were slow. She opened her eyes just a little. They were a deep reddish brown like desert rock soaked in sunlight. Her voice was soft but firm. "You saved me. Human." Reed knelt beside her. "You're lucky I'm not the kind that leaves people outside. What happened to you?" She tried to speak but coughed. He handed her water. She drank it slowly, watching him with a strange mix of caution and curiosity. "You are a cowboy," she said after a moment, "alone in this place." "Someone has to watch the outpost," he replied. She touched her forehead as if steadying herself. "My name is Atsali." Reed nodded. "Reed Carter." Atsali looked around the small cabin, the wooden walls, the old heater, the table pushed against the corner. It was not much, but it was better than the deadly storm outside. She finally said, "You saved my life. I will not forget that." Reed stood up and checked the heater again. The light kept flickering weaker and weaker. He frowned. "What is wrong?" she asked. "That thing's dying. If it shuts off." He glanced at her. "We freeze." Atsali studied the heater with calmness that felt strange during such a dangerous moment. Then she looked at Reed with serious eyes. "I can survive this cold," she said, "but you cannot." Reed crossed his arms. "I've lived through plenty of winters here." "Not this one," she replied softly. "This storm is unnatural. Something else is happening." Reed raised a brow. "What do you mean?" Atsali touched the floor with her fingertips as if she could feel the storm through the wood. "My tribe teaches us to sense the world. This storm is not only wind and snow. There is movement in it, power, a signal." Reed didn't fully understand, but her expression made him uneasy. She finally said, "If the heater dies tonight, you will not live until morning." The heater flickered again, then died. The cabin fell silent. Reed's breath turned white instantly. He cursed, trying to restart it, but the machine only made a weak click and stayed dark. Atsali stood slowly, swaying a little but keeping her balance. She stepped close to him. Reed tried to ignore how much heat radiated from her body. She said the words that made him freeze in confusion. "Share my bed or freeze." Reed blinked. "What?" Atsali met his eyes without fear. "My people hold great heat inside. It keeps us alive during the cold seasons. If we sleep close, you will survive the night." Reed's jaw tightened. "Are you asking or threatening?" She shook her head. "Not threat, only truth. Your human body cannot survive alone now." Reed looked around the cabin. He had blankets, but they weren't enough. Winter on Red Mesa 4 wasn't normal. It could go colder than any Earth desert night. And the fact that she was still warm, burning warm, proved she wasn't lying. "Look," he said slowly, "you don't know me. I don't know you. And I'm not—" She interrupted calmly. "This is survival, nothing more." Reed hesitated. Her tone was steady, not emotional. She wasn't asking for anything else. She was offering the only solution. The cold was already crawling into his bones. His fingers numbed. He wrapped his arms around himself. It was happening faster than expected. Atsali turned away and lay on the small bed against the wall. She pulled back the blanket slightly and looked at him again. "Choose, human." Reed looked at the dead heater, the frozen window, the shaking walls. The storm was getting stronger. He could hear ice striking the roof. If the cabin collapsed, at least he would not die alone. He walked toward the bed slowly, every step heavy. When he sat beside her, warm air touched him instantly. It felt like stepping in front of a fire after days in the snow. Atsali moved the blanket over both of them. Her body heat flowed through the cloth as if she were a living furnace. He let out an involuntary breath of relief. "See," she said softly, "you are already warmer." Reed didn't answer. He was still tense. She noticed. "You think I will harm you?" she asked quietly. "I don't know." She turned her face toward him. "If I wanted to harm you, I would not have let you bring me inside, and you would not be breathing now." Reed gave a small, humorless laugh. "Not sure if that makes me feel better." Atsali closed her eyes. "Sleep." Reed caught her. "The storm will last many hours." Reed did not sleep. He lay still, listening to the storm, listening to her calm breathing. He wondered what tribe business had brought her into such a dangerous place alone, and why the storm felt wrong. Hours passed. The cabin grew colder, but not the bed. As long as he stayed close to her, he was safe from the cold. He tried to shift away a little, just to see how far he could go. The cold attacked instantly, biting his skin through the blanket. He moved back quickly. Atsali's eyes opened. "Do not be foolish. If you leave my warmth, you will die." Reed sighed. Yeah, I figured. She studied him carefully. You are not used to trusting others. Being alone keeps life simple, he replied. Yet you saved a stranger, she said softly. And that is not simple. Reed didn't speak because he didn't know what to say. She closed her eyes again but stayed alert, like a warrior resting but not sleeping. Suddenly, she tensed. Reed felt it too. A shift in the air. A sound beneath the storm. What is it? He whispered. Atali's eyes snapped open. Something is near. Reed reached for his rifle, keeping the blanket over both of them. Animal? Not animal. Atali sat up slowly. Her markings glowed faintly. Enemies. They follow me. Reed's heart pounded. Enemies? Why didn't you tell me earlier? I did not want to bring danger to you, she said. But they found my trail. Reed stood and looked through the window. Snow whipped across the glass, but between the flashes of lightning-like energy in the storm, he thought he saw movement, dark shapes shifting along the ridge. How many? He asked. Atali stood beside him. Her warmth made the air around her steam. 3, maybe 4. They are war runners. Reed stiffened. He had heard of them. Rival clan of the Apache Star nomads. Dangerous, brutal, hunting those with special gifts. Why are they after you? He asked. Atali didn't look away from the window. Her voice lowered. Because I carry something they want, something from my tribe, and they will not stop. Reed checked his rifle's charge. It wasn't full, but it would have to do. The shapes grew clearer. They were getting closer. The storm was not their enemy. It was their cover. Atali took a breath and faced him. You saved me once tonight. I will not ask you to fight for me, but they are coming. And they will not spare you. Reed gripped his rifle and stared at the door. The wind hit it harder now, like fists trying to break through. It's okay, he said, voice steady. Atali looked confused. Why is it okay? He gave her a small, calm smile. Because I'm not letting anyone die in my outpost. Atali stared at him for a long moment. A new respect appeared in her eyes, deep, almost surprising. Humans, she whispered, always choosing courage, even when alone. Outside, footsteps crunched in the snow. Reed raised his rifle. Atali stepped close, her heat filling the room like a shield. The storm kept howling. The enemy was almost at the door. The long night was far from over. Reed held his rifle steady, breathing slowly as the storm screamed outside the cabin. The wooden door shook under the force of the wind. But he knew it was not only the storm testing it. Something else was moving in the snow. Something that followed Atali through the night. Atali stood beside him, her warm presence fighting back the deadly cold filling the room. Her eyes were sharp now, glowing faintly with the strange energy of her tribe. She listened, not with her ears, but with that deeper sense she claimed to have. They are close, she whispered. How close? Reed asked. Atali walked toward the door and placed her palm against it. A few steps away. Reed tightened his grip on the rifle. Then we don't have much time. Before he finished speaking, the door rattled again. This time it wasn't the storm. Something hit the wooden planks with enough force to crack them. Reed stepped back and aimed at the center. Move away from the door, Atali said quietly. Reed didn't argue. He took 2 steps to the side, keeping his aim high. A second hit came, harder, sharper. The wood splintered. Then a long, dark blade pierced through the crack. Reed fired. The plasma shot tore through the blade and blasted outside, lighting the storm for a second like a flare. A sharp roar followed, something between a man's cry and a beast's anger. Atali exhaled. War runner. Reed had heard stories of them, fast, brutal, enhanced with strange tribal technology that made them stronger than normal aliens. but Stories didn't prepare him for the real thing. The blade pulled back, and the door shook again as multiple figures rammed against it at once. "They're trying to break in," Reed said. "They will break in," Atsali replied. "The door won't hold." Reed looked around. "Then we need a plan." Atsali stepped close to him and placed her warm hand on his cold wrist. "We fight together." He nodded. "Together." The next strike broke the door open. Snow blasted into the cabin. Two tall figures rushed in, war runners with dark skin marked by glowing lines, their eyes shining fiercely through the storm. Their clothes were made of hardened hide and metal plates, and each carried long, hooked blades. Reed fired the second one first. The shot hit its shoulder, spinning it backward. The first one reached him quickly with a speed that almost blurred. Reed ducked, rolled across the cold floor, and narrowly avoided the sweeping blade. Atsali moved with grace unlike anything he had seen. She charged forward with her hands glowing bright red. When she struck the first war runner's chest, steam erupted from the impact. The enemy stumbled, surprised by her heat. The second war runner regained balance, roaring as he sprinted toward them. Reed aimed, but the figure moved too fast. Atsali leapt forward, blocking the enemy's advance. Heat burst from her body, enough to melt frost instantly. The cabin filled with the sound of metal clashing against the wooden floor and walls. Reed fired again, catching one of the warriors in the leg. The alien fell, but only for a moment. These enemies didn't stop easily. Atsali fought fiercely, using her heat to push them back, but there were too many and too little space. The third war runner entered the cabin, ducking under the broken doorway, its eyes glowing brighter than the others. "That one is their leader," Atsali warned. Reed fired at the leader immediately, but the warrior deflected the shot with his blade. The plasma scattered across the wall, burning a hole through the wood. The leader spoke in a deep, harsh voice. "Atsali, you cannot escape us." Reed aimed again. "Get out of my outpost." The leader turned toward him and charged. Reed barely had time to react. The leader's blade sliced the air where Reed stood. Reed threw himself behind the bed, using it as cover. The blade hit the mattress and cut through it easily. Atsali grabbed the leader's arm, her palm glowing, and the air hissed as steam rose from his skin. He snarled and swung at her, forcing her back. Reed emerged from behind the bed and fired again. His shot struck the leader's chest, leaving a smoking mark. The leader stumbled, but only for a second. "These things don't quit," Reed yelled. "They are trained never to flee," Atsali replied. "But they do feel pain." The first war runner lunged toward Reed again. Reed dodged, grabbed a metal rod from beside the heater, and struck the warrior's arm. The alien growled, the impact slowing him down long enough for Reed to fire point blank at his chest. The shot threw the enemy back against the wall. The second war runner turned its blade toward Atsali, but she stepped inside his guard, placed her hand on his neck, and released a burst of heat so intense the warrior dropped to his knees. She knocked him aside with one swift strike. The leader roared in anger and rushed at her. Their blades clashed, his metal edge versus her burning palms. The clash lit up the dark cabin with sparks and steam. Reed aimed again, but the leader moved too quickly. Their fight was too close, too fast. He couldn't shoot without hitting her. Reed instead grabbed the metal rod and swung it into the leader's side. The alien grunted, turning for just a moment, and that was enough. Atsali struck the leader's chest with both hands. A burst of red heat exploded from her, sending the warrior crashing into the doorframe. Reed didn't wait. He fired again. The plasma bolt hit the leader's chest, knocking him backward into the snow outside. The storm swallowed the body immediately. For a moment, everything fell silent except the storm's wind. Reed lowered his rifle, breathing hard. Atsali stepped to the door and looked outside. Snow blew in circles, covering the fallen shapes. The leader did not rise again. "It is over," she said softly. Reed sat on the edge of the broken bed. "That was a lot." She walked toward him. her warmth making the freezing air around them easier to breathe. "You fought beside me without fear." "Oh, I had fear," Reed replied. "I just didn't have time to listen to it." She gave him a small smile. "You are brave, or stupid. Sometimes they are the same." They shared a quiet moment. The storm outside slowly softened. The wind lost some of its harshness. Snow still fell, but it no longer screamed across the plains. Atsali knelt beside the fallen war runners and closed their eyes. Reed watched her in silence. She treated them with respect, even though they came to kill her. "It is our way," she said when she noticed him watching. "Even enemies deserve honor." Reed nodded. "I get that." He felt the cold tightening around his body again. The heater was dead. The cabin was broken, and sunrise was still hours away. Atsali walked back to him. "The storm calms, but the cold will stay. You still need warmth." Reed sighed, exhausted. "Right, that." Atsali sat beside him on the bed again. She pulled the blankets around them both. "The night is long, but you will live." Reed leaned back slowly. He allowed himself to relax for the first time in hours. The warmth from her body eased the shaking in his hands. He watched her face in the dim light, the calm eyes, the markings on her cheeks, the quiet strength in her expression. She spoke softly. "Reed Carter, you risked your life for me. You needed help. You could have handed me to them." Reed shook his head. "No, that's not how humans do things. Not the good ones, anyway." Atsali looked touched by his words. "My people respect acts of courage and loyalty." Reed chuckled. "Well, I'm just a cowboy trying to survive a bad storm." "You are more than that," she said. "Tonight you fought like a warrior of my tribe." Reed met her eyes. "Is that supposed to be a compliment?" "It is the greatest compliment I can give," she said with a gentle expression. The room grew warmer around them. Reed felt his eyelids grow heavy. The adrenaline faded, leaving only exhaustion behind. "You can sleep," Atsali said. "I will keep watch." Reed nodded, but he didn't sleep immediately. His mind replayed the battle, the sound of blades on wood, the glowing marks on the enemy's bodies, Atsali's heat saving his life. He finally asked, "Why were they really after you?" Atsali looked toward the broken door. "I am what my people call a skypath seer. I can sense the land, the storms, the movements beneath the ground. The war runners wanted to capture me. They believe my gift can be used for war." "And your tribe?" "They sent me on a journey of proving, to learn courage alone, to return stronger." Reed raised an eyebrow. "That's one rough test." "It is our tradition." "And now?" he asked quietly. Atsali looked back at him. "Now I must return to my tribe, but I cannot go alone anymore. The war runners will come again, with more warriors." Reed stretched his legs under the blankets. "And you want me to go with you?" She hesitated only a moment. "Yes. You have strength and heart. My people will honor that." Reed considered it. Leaving the outpost meant leaving everything familiar behind. But staying meant going back to silence, loneliness, cold nights, and no real purpose. Atsali watched him closely. "You saved me, fought for me, stood with me." Reed looked at the broken cabin, the dead heater, the fading storm. "Maybe I'm tired of being alone out here." Atsali gave a warm, approving nod. "Then you will come." Reed exhaled slowly. "Yeah, I'll come." Atsali adjusted the blanket, settling beside him more comfortably. "Good. When dawn comes, we leave. My people live far, but the path is beautiful." Reed smiled faintly. "As long as it's warmer than this place." Atsali's expression softened. "You will not freeze with me near." Reed chuckled. "I believe that." The storm faded until only a whisper of wind touched the broken cabin walls. Dawn began to glow faintly in the distance, painting the sky with a pale silver light. Atsali watched the horizon. Reed watched her. She turned to him and spoke the same words she had spoken earlier in the night, but now her voice carried warmth instead of urgency. "Share my bed or freeze, Reed Carter." Reed laughed softly. "I'm starting to think I didn't save you. You saved me." She closed her eyes and rested beside him. Perhaps we saved each other. As the first sunlight touched the snow outside, the long storm came to an end. And inside the broken outpost, a human cowboy and an alien warrior rested side by side, two strangers no longer alone, ready to face the world together.